Unless you pick Green Bay or Tennessee, week 8 in NFL Survivor polls proved to be safe. We'll go over all that and get you ready for week 9 for our Survivor poll picks and take a look at the NFL Survivor odds for some of the longer odd teams. All of that coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants.
Michael, what a great week 8. Your NFL Survivor Pool team won. My NFL Survivor Pool team won. The two teams that we told you guys to potentially stay away from, Green Bay and Tennessee, both lost, and the Raiders and Seahawks won. If all weeks could go as well as this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was very glad that I didn't pick some of those lesser or more challenging matchups. They proved to be challenging. I think we continue to see the NFL is really tough to predict, except for perhaps against a couple of the weaker teams.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The two weakest teams are the New York teams. My game, this was me watching the game. The blood pressure was so low. But your team, the Bucs, going against the Giants, they had to scare you on Monday night.
Yeah, actually, I was pretty impressed with how the Giants, approached the game. They made some adjustments that I didn't see them make in different weeks. And the Bucs are a great team, and so you got to kind of hand it to the Giants for having a chance right there at the end to tie the game and put it into overtime.
All right, so we bragged enough of how we did for just 1 week. How did the rest of our NFL FFC Survivor Pool go?
So you kind of hit the nail on the head with the opening. We lost only 3 of our 32, so we're down to 29. And those 3, 2 of them picked the Packers and 1 picked Tennessee. Most of our viewers, or most of those in the poll, picked the same teams that we picked, Kansas City and the Bucs. So they are safe. There was a couple sleeper picks in there, which I liked. In Seattle and Philadelphia were good picks this week. But we're, a lot of people still alive. So do we, is it time to take some more risk, or let's play it safe? And there's only 30 people left. So,
well, we'll discuss that. How about right now? Let's go over the week 9. We got 5 games that we're focusing on this week, the 5 highest favorites. Arizona is at home, 4.5 over Miami. Tennessee is also at home, 6-point favorites over Chicago. That's the same spread with Houston at Jacksonville, but Houston's on the road. New England, 7.5-point favorites at those New York Jets. And then the top one, Kansas City, monster 12-point favorites against Carolina. Michael, I'd like to start with that Arizona-Miami game. I'm interested, as you as the coach, what you thought of Tua's debut. I wasn't really that impressed. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot because they got a pick 6 and they got a punt return. And he was only, what I got it here, 12 of 22 for 93 yards. So I'm a little nervous about whether Tua can be relied on here.
Yeah, it's really way too early to tell on Tua. I mean, I'm impressed with some of the skills that he has, but I think there's a reason he fell down the draft boards. So yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, the 4th touchdown that they scored was also defense created. They got the ball on like the 1 or 2 yard line before they put in that 4th score. So, and then they didn't really do anything after that, but just manage the game, which is, I think, the right way to coach Tua in that situation. And it's really, I think, Brian Flores coaching that has put the Dolphins in a situation to where nobody wants to play them right now. Arizona coming off a bye, which is part of the reason I think the spread is where it's at. After a really nice game, but all of a sudden they're saying, well, what? I thought this was going to be an easy game for us, and we're playing perhaps one of the more challenging teams right now in the NFL. I don't like this game at all. I think 4.5 spread is aggressive by the odds makers, and so I certainly wouldn't touch this, even though I really like this Arizona team. I think they looked really good going into the bye week. They're coming out of a bye week. They're healthy. But the Miami defense, the Miami team all around, I think is playing well. And like you said, Tua is really the only thing that's kind of questionable.
And I know you love defenses. I just don't know if you can rely on some of those big plays that they've got against the defense when they beat the Niners and Rams. We'll see. I like this Arizona game more than the next game we're going to talk about, which is Tennessee at home against Chicago. Look, I'm wrong all the time on the show, let's be clear. But I was right last week when I said that I was not comfortable with this Tennessee team against the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Cincinnati Bengals pulled off the upset. Again, this week, I don't feel comfortable about this Tennessee team against Chicago, who I think is even a better team than Cincinnati. Look, you got a 5-2 team against Tennessee against a 5-3 team against Chicago. But Tennessee has lost their last 2 games to Pittsburgh, which is forgivable, but to Cincinnati, which is not.
Yeah, and like in that Pittsburgh game, they looked pretty strong, right? Especially with what we saw Pittsburgh do in this comeback against the Ravens, and it was a comeback, really. But the Cincinnati game was kind of inexcusable. I think I didn't really follow I watched that game, and I didn't really follow what they were trying to do. They almost played like they were, the worst team. And then that's what ended up biting them. That being said, I think the Chicago team is on its way, falling like a rock down. And even though I think Nick Foles can, do some cool stuff, and the Chicago defense, is still potentially one of the better defenses, although they haven't really shown that.
No, they haven't.
I think that this is kind of more anti-Chicago than it is pro-Tennessee. I'm not sure I agree with you that this is a scarier game than the Arizona-Miami game. I think Miami is very scary right now. I agree with you. You can't really necessarily rely on the defense like they have, but the defense doesn't necessarily get turnovers to, keep that game close. And so I don't like either one of these games. I think I'll end it like that.
I'll just say the most important player on this Tennessee Titan team is Derrick Henry. How will Derrick Henry do? Derrick Henry last game lost 2 offensive linemen. I mean, they should have torched Cincinnati's defensive line. They weren't able to. Now they play a better defensive line in Chicago. I'm staying far away from this game. I'm not going to pick Arizona too, but I felt more comfortable with Arizona. But I feel more comfortable than both of those games with our next game, Michael, the Houston Texans at Jacksonville. Oh, those Jacksonville Jaguars. Since they upset me in week 1, I'm continuing to count. They have lost 6 straight. They have given up 30 points or more in every game. And, Michael, the one saving grace has been that offense. How good is that offense going to be without their juggernaut QB, Minshew?
Yeah, juggernaut. I think that they're happy to look at this new quarterback. Although, Minshew is, we'll see. I think he still remains to be seen whether or not he can be an NFL quarterback. He hasn't really shown it yet. Houston's coming off the bye, right? And Houston had a nice week before going into the bye. They all of a sudden decided to play football. I think a lot of people at the beginning of the year thought that they'd give Tennessee a run, and it wasn't going to be necessarily Indianapolis, but we saw a really tough start and a really hard loss from DeAndre Hopkins going over to Arizona. I actually think Houston's going to cover the spread even on this one. This is a game where I would have a hard time betting against the spread because of where Jacksonville is, but I still don't know who Houston is, and so I understand the fear in putting your survivor life on the line with Houston, who we don't really know what team they are this year.
Yeah, and I can hear people through the camera going, Houston? Bet my survivor life on Houston, a 1-6 team. I mean, they're both 1-6, but keep in mind the incredibly difficult schedule Houston has played this year. They played their 5 of their 6 losses have been the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Titans, the Packers, and the Steelers. So you got 2 1-6 teams, and the road team is favored by 6 points. I mean, that's not normal, but I think it's leagues different again because I think Houston's a much better team, and at least they have their starting quarterback. If it was just down to these 3 games, I would pick Houston as my survivor pick. Sounds like you agree?
Yes, I definitely agree with that. So if you don't have Kansas City or New England left, then I think Houston's the pick to go with.
Look, let me give it away, Michael. New England at the New York Jets. That is going to be my survivor pick for this week. So I am picking New England. Can I say that? Is that possible? Most people who pick New England won't say that. They'll say, I'm picking against the Jets. So, but we need to talk a little bit about New England. I mean, let's give you some full disclosure if you're going to put your survivor life on New England. Julian Edelman out for the year. Not clear whether N'Keal Harry will play, but you like to talk about coaches, Michael. Who's got the better coach between Belichick and Gase?
Yeah, that was the place to go. I mean, despite Cam Newton's fumble at the end of that game this last week, they put themselves in position to not only come back against Buffalo, but to win that game, which would have been
Buffalo,
which would have been huge for them in their playoff desires. My fear a little bit here is Belichick done for the year on this team? I doubt it. It's a little too early for him to give up on that. And Cam Newton, for that matter, who I think is their best chance of winning, despite the fact that he continues to make mistakes. So, I mean, come on, like you say, this is betting against the Jets. I mean, I think the Jets are happy to go 0-16. They want the first pick, unless, of course, they're going to scare away all the first draft picks next year, which could happen because there's a couple of juniors who may decide to come back to play their last year so they don't end up being picked by the Jets.
So, Michael, what you said, I think, basically was a great argument for the New England pick, in the sense that I don't think that they've given up on the season, but it's coming if they continue to struggle, which to me means New England, if you haven't picked them yet, this is your last chance. Now, you might say, look, I'm not going to pick New England at all, and I'm fine with that. But they have no future value except week 17 when they host the Jets, but you can't count on that. A, will you even go to week 17? And B, what state will the Patriots be in, and will they care? It's funny, Michael, we all the time we joke and we go, the 2 New York teams, they're the worst teams. That's really unfair to the New York Giants. The New York Giants actually have been in a lot of their games. The Jets have not, the closest game they've had is 9 points. Obviously, they're 0-8. They've lost all games. They haven't even come within not less than 9 points of winning the game. And am I as confident this week as I was last week? Of course not, because the Chiefs are one of the best teams in the NFL, if not the best team in the NFL. And the Patriots are a 500 team, in my opinion. But compared to the other options, I can't pick Kansas City. I picked them last week. Compared to the other options, I feel most comfortable with this New England game. Michael, I am going to let you talk about the last game.
Well, I love Kansas City. I really love Andy Reid and obviously Patrick Mahomes and all the weapons that he has. Their defense has, taken advantage of weaker teams, but we saw what they did against the Ravens. Obviously, that they had that tough loss a week ago to the Raiders. But I actually really like this Carolina team. I really like their coaching staff, but their defense is really down this year, which is, probably pretty disappointing for their fans, because that was one of their strengths in years past. They're coming off the bye week, which is nice for them. They might actually have McCaffrey back, but they're going into Kansas City, who has fans. It's going to be cold this week in Kansas City. Carolina is a warm weather team. Kansas City didn't really get beat up against the Jets this last week, so they don't really have to recover from much. I think Kansas City is going to kind of put the throttle down, make sure that they get the win easily against Carolina. This is a game they should win. They need to make sure that they're, they want that 1 seed, and the Steelers, have a schedule that's going to allow them to probably only lose 2 or 3 games this year. So Kansas City has to win games. And so I think this is a safe bet. I don't know that I'm as comfortable as you last week with the big yawner. I see the New England game being a comparable, comfortable game from a win perspective, but I think Kansas City wins by more points than New England does.
So let me be clear. Your survivor pick this week is the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, no question. I don't feel comfortable with those 3 bottom games. I can't pick New England, but I probably still wouldn't. I think I'm going Kansas City this week, despite the fact that I'm losing, probably the best team with future value on the list.
Shame on you, Michael. You, as a Raider fan, should know better.
Oh, come on.
Come on now. Raider. So let's talk about your Raiders. How did the Raiders do against Kansas City?
They just dominated them.
Okay. How did the Raiders do against these same Panthers?
They had a tough game.
No, I'm just kidding you. I certainly understand your pick. And look, if I'm just looking and you're telling me who is most likely to win this week, look, it's Kansas City. But as Michael alluded to, there are some dangers here. And one of the reasons I did not go with Tampa Bay followed by Kansas City was I didn't see this Panther game as a slam dunk. Look, when we're talking about the Jets and we talk about the Giants, it is simply unfair, Michael, to put Carolina anywhere near those teams. This Carolina team has beaten 2 teams that are better than a 500 record this year, the Raiders and the Arizona Cardinals. And what is the one thing that the Kansas City Chiefs are bad at? The one thing is they have a 29th ranked run defense. That is amazing to me that it is that bad, given that they usually are way ahead of their teams and the other team has to throw the ball. But they still have given up the 3rd most rushing yards per game than any team in the NFL. And you alluded to it. How about the best running back in all of football likely to come back and be on the other side of the field in Christian McCaffrey? So look.
Best fantasy running back.
Oh, do you not think? Okay, hey, let's take the gloves off. Forget fantasy. Who is, if you're starting an NFL franchise for 1 year, who are you starting your team with at running back?
So I love Christian McCaffrey for his ability to do things out of the backfield. But in terms of moving the line, which is what you need in a running back, you need somebody who makes you want to stack the box. And there's no one better than Derrick Henry to require the box being stacked. If you had to pick a running back who you wanted to have in your backfield, it's got to be Derrick Henry. Anyone who chooses otherwise doesn't really understand the game of football.
Oh, look at you. Well, apparently I don't understand the game of football because you take the term running back way too literally. Part of a running back's job is to catch passes out of the backfield and be a dual threat. And Henry basically doesn't do it. And McCaffrey's the best at the game.
So again, if we're talking about winning championships, right? How much has, McCaffrey done for his team in terms of putting that team in the playoffs and giving them a chance to win a Super Bowl? How much has Derrick Henry done for his team in terms of giving his team a chance to get to the Super Bowl and win? Compare those two and get back to me 1 week.
I will. I have to. I'm going to just argue supporting cast, but okay, I will. I'll do my homework. All right. So, Michael, let's quickly.
I love McCaffrey, by the way. I love the guy. I think.
Oh, not yet. Too late. Let's put up the board, which reveals Michael's Chiefs pick and my pick, as well as where the crowd is going, in addition to where Las Vegas is going. All right, Michael, we like to add a little spice to the show, one extra thing. Last week, we talked about the Super Bowl odds for the teams that were most likely to win the Super Bowl, according to Las Vegas. Let's dip down a little bit and take a look at the odds of teams with longer shots, and we'll both make arguments. We're in the arguing mood apparently today for the team most likely of the longer shots to pay off given their odds. Starting with the quartet of 4 teams that are 25-1, Buffalo, Indianapolis, the LA Rams, and the Tennessee Titans. After that, it goes to Arizona as a 29-1. San Francisco, the Super Bowl participant last year, is 40-1. Chicago and Philadelphia are 60-1. and the Browns and your Raiders, Michael, are 66-1.
No respect. After that dominating performance against the Cleveland Browns, no respect.
All right. Well, what do you think? Well, let's hear. Let's see if you back it up. Who is given the odds? Let's be very clear to people. We're not saying this is the most likely team to win, but we're considering their odds. And given that, Michael's going to make a pick and I'm going to make a pick. I'll let you go first, Michael.
Yeah. Where would you put your money? Well, I think it's tempting to go with an NFC team just because I think the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Ravens are the toughest teams to go through. We're on the NFC side. I mean, even some of the better teams like the Packers and the Bucks and your Seahawks have had some down weeks, right? And so I think it's tempting to go NFC, but I look at these NFC teams, the Rams and Arizona and San Francisco are in that difficult division. The one that doesn't win the division may not even make the playoffs, and then they're going to have to go through a 2 seed probably or a 3 seed, which is not easy. So I'm going to go AFC. And even though I like the 66-1 odds for the Raiders and actually probably would take those odds versus perhaps like Indianapolis, I don't understand the 25-1 at all there. And certainly the Browns, who they dominated this week.
What are the Browns doing on this list?
I have no idea. I think this might have been put together before they saw.
No, it was. This is after this week's games, and I don't get it with the Nick Chubb who's injured. Anyway.
Yeah. So I think Buffalo by far has the best chance to win the Super Bowl of those on this list. I don't
25-1.
I would like better odds there, but again, you look on that left side there, and there's not really anyone that has any better odds or that much better of odds. So I would certainly like 25-1 better than the 40-1 for the Niners. So I'm tempted to go maybe with Philadelphia, but I think Buffalo, they had the really bad week against the Titans, which was a bit of a pile-on week. They were in that Kansas City game, but those are their 2 losses. Their wins have been narrow, but we've always known that Buffalo wasn't going to blow teams out. They got to figure out their defense and put it back together. But their offense, I think they continue to show they can beat pretty much any team on the offensive side of the ball. And as long as their defenses play well, they're going to keep games close. And so I think if we're going, best chance of paying off, it's Buffalo. I don't think any one of these other teams actually has a chance to win the Super Bowl.
Well, look, I'm going to agree with you to a certain extent. If I look at the 4 25-1 teams, I would pick Buffalo, and one of the reasons is they're going to win their division. There is no certainty, and I think there's a very good chance that none of the other teams are going to win their division of those 25-1 teams. But look, I'm going elsewhere because under that same logic, I want to pick a team who I feel is certain to win their division. Right? If you win your division, not only do you of course make the playoffs, you're going to get a home playoff game in round 1. So don't cut the video off. But I am going to take the 60-1 Philadelphia Eagles. Michael, you get 60-1. And look, there is no doubt they're going to win their division. No doubt. So they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to get that home playoff game. And they're going to need to sneak by, get 3 victories. They're all going to be tough games. Is what you hope is by the time that the playoffs occur, since we all know that they're going to make the playoffs, that they get healthier. Miles Sanders, Alshon Jeffries, Zach Ertz, Darius Slay, and 2 offensive linemen have missed significant amounts, are injured now and have missed earlier games. So you hope that they get healthier. None of them are out for the season. And you hope, Michael, please comment, Carson Wentz cannot be this bad. He has played better in previous years. I just am going to hope that he plays better later this year. What are your thoughts on Wentz?
That's the key. Really, that's the key. You said all the right things. This Philadelphia team at the beginning of the year was considered one of the better teams in the league until those injuries happened on the offensive line. And that was partly because Carson Wentz was expected to perform, and he just hasn't done that since his injury. he's continued to look a little tentative, a little bit worried about injury. Can that be changed? Well, we saw what happened so far with Derek Carr this year. He's looked much better than he has in prior years because of that injury which faced him. So can Carson Wentz bounce back and from being perhaps one of the worst quarterbacks in the league right now to being what he was promised to be? I hope so. And that would really make for a really fun playoffs to see Philadelphia make a dent. It's not a bad pick, Eric. It's really tempting to go with, especially since I think the AFC is the more challenging conference right now.
I also want to thank all of you guys. We so appreciate the support. Some of you guys are excited that we got our video out late last week. We apologize. That was our schedule. So we got it out really early this week. If you made it this far to the video, please smash that like button. And if you haven't yet, please help us out. It's free. Hit the red subscriber button.
Yeah, don't forget to comment this week. Tell us who you're picking and why. Go ahead and tell us who you would pick on the odds as well for the Super Bowl, both the top odds and if you want to show some of these longer odds as well. And, you know, keep commenting. We'd love to hear from you guys.
All right. Until we see you when we review week 10. I can't believe how quick this season is going. Be safe, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.